I'm curious, Andy, what is longevity and lifespan, and like how does this correlate to our mental health?
Yeah, I've actually researched this quite a bit over the last 6 months. And, Peter Attia is probably the leading expert in how we kind of make sense of these definitions. And he really has three definitions that we need to understand. The first one is lifespan. So that refers to your maximum period of time here on Earth for an individual organism. So whether you're going to live 80 years, 100 years, 50 years, that's your maximum lifespan. So lifespan is the maximum amount of years. Health span refers to the period of time in that stage that you spent in good or optimal health without chronic
Okay.
disease. So, out of 100 years, how much of that time did you spend in good health? Now, the third thing is longevity, and it's the combination of maximizing lifespan and optimizing health span. So, how do you increase both of those? How do you increase the time of life and increase the amount of life that is in a healthy state? That's what he means by longevity. Now, we need to understand this around some statistics around longevity in general and lifespan. So between 2000 and 2019, the global life expectancy increased by over 6 years. So that's a really good thing. And projections are by 2050, we're going to add another 5 years to that lifespan. So we are actually, with our medical technology and everything, living longer. Now, that's a great thing. But as we live longer, guess what's happening to our mental health? It's actually trending in the opposite direction. So, a couple surveys here by Gallup. Gallup in 2024 found that 20% of adults experienced loneliness a lot during the day. Okay. Not just like once, but a lot, 20%. When it comes to friends and interactions, time with friends, there was a noticeable decline of 60 minutes per day in 2003 to 34 minutes a day in 2019, and then 20 minutes a day in 2020. So our ability to connect as friends has dramatically decreased. And then if you look at even other things like depression and anxiety, statistics are not looking great on this. We've had massive increases in rates of depression, anxiety across every age span, across every demographic. So let's say we live longer, that's great, but we really need to deal with this issue of health span. So I'm curious for you, Zach, like how do you make sense of this idea of longevity, this living longer and trying to have the maximum amount of life spent in this healthy state of life? How do you see it, and what are tools and tactics you use to optimize that?
I mean, I think the biggest things according to the research is having a high muscle mass in your midlife. Muscle mass and grip strength are two of the biggest indicators for how your life or health span is going to go. Um, and I think it's really interesting how, you see more people. I don't know if it's the internet or if it's the availability heuristic or if it's actually this way, but old is not old anymore. I see like a 90-year-old deadlifting on Instagram every single day, and it blows my mind. And this whole concept, and as health and nutrition and fitness is becoming so much more mainstream, we're seeing so many more old people that are functioning in such a different way than we thought possible. And it begs that question of do we get old because we stop moving, or do we stop moving because we get old?
Mm,
And a lot of these people are making me think, and even in my experience thus far, it's pretty obvious that the things I stopped doing stop being easier to do. And to me, if you can exercise, if you can lift weights 3 times a week and do regular physicals, like you have the chance to live a long time now.
yeah.
Brian Johnson would say forever.
You're right. Well, the question to me is if you could increase your lifespan from 70 years to 80 years, but you knew that the quality of that life was going to drastically decrease, would you want those extra 10 years? And I think a lot of people would kind of
That's a
pause
tough
at
one.
that and go like, geez, 10 more years, but like those 10 years really aren't spent in health. I don't really know if I want to live that way. And we really need to be thinking about this. I mean, as early as possible, but especially in our 30s and 40s, because as
Big time.
things start to trend downhill, it's like that snowball effect. They build up speed and they build up momentum. and there's comorbidity that happens. So let's
Yeah.
say you get depression, but then you get on a medication for depression, and then that causes issues over here and high blood pressure. Then you work on high blood pressure, but then you get
Yep.
obese, and then everything starts to build and build upon each other. So you really have to watch. And the greatest marker of health from a lot of research has shown is our physical fitness and our body composition around fat and muscle mass.
Yeah.
Those are really two. And then there's cardiovascular issues, there's metabolic issues. But if you can maintain a level of physical fitness, a decreased in your body fat, and eat nutritious food and stay within, a caloric zone, I think that's really helpful. Like, what have you
Yep.
seen around, like, what's most important in 30s and 40s to focus on that prepares us for the 50s, 60s, and 70s?
I mean, losing weight is the number one thing for sure. In terms of decreasing all cause mortality and pretty much every factor, losing weight. I mean, like people lose, guys in the program are constantly coming off of statins just because they're, losing weight and they're getting in shape. And so that's my first piece of advice: get in shape. It's lean mass to fat mass ratio that makes that biggest difference. You have to be strong enough because strength is going to deteriorate as you get older. And so building the base now is what's going to make it so you can open the jar later. And your quality of life, what you said is so true. When you're 60, you've already lost so many things. You've had so many injuries, you've had to go through so much that your capacity to rebuild and to even get yourself back into the shape, it just goes down so much, becomes
Mm.
so much harder. Maintaining is way easier than trying to rebuild in your 60s and 70s. That's not saying it's too late. If you're in your 60s and 70s, go get some hormone optimization and put some muscle mass on because it's going to make the rest way
Yep.
better.
Yep. And one thing that I would say around longevity or quality of life is we need to change, especially I think for Americans, our approach to pain. I believe, and in Pursue Whole, we believe that pain is a pathway to growth. And what I see a lot of people do is when they anticipate pain in the future, they try to get around that pain, outsource that pain, or block that pain. And what it does is it actually decreases our ability and our resiliency to work through difficult things. As you age and as you get older, you're going to have more loss. Research actually shows that the more you age, actually, the happier you are, which is interesting,
Yeah.
because we're not so focused on money and building things. We're just focused on life and enjoying, grandkids and other things. But with physical health, if we don't learn how to push through pain and build a tolerance to discomfort, that's really going to kick us in the ass later. Pain is a pathway to growth. And what I see is people try to outsource that and it causes all kinds of problems later. So, like, what are ways, Sean, that people, let's talk about this for a second. What are ways that we can really work on working through pain or building a tolerance to pain and discomfort through physical fitness, maybe through ice baths, through relationships? What does that look like to push ourselves to build that tolerance?
Uh,
I mean, and you're,
Developing,
you're a perfect example because
yeah.
you've gone through, special forces and you've had to experience tremendous amount of discomfort psychologically, physically, emotionally in order to set a new baseline for yourself.
Yeah, actually, I tell people often that I consider myself lucky for the amount of suffering that I've been forced to endure because I think it's really hard to push yourself past where you want to go. Right. And so, like, being in situations that are tough, building the business, getting fit, or whatever that is, working through the relationship and doing the work, like doing hard shit makes you better at doing hard shit because it simply gives you the confidence that you can, that
Mm.
you're not going to fall apart like you think that you will. Um, I still to this day use ice baths and breath work to really make myself suffer because I think that breath work, doing breath holding, it's just there is no greater battle between you and you than not breathing when your brain is telling you
Mm.
to do it. And when you push through that over and over, it makes most stuff not as hard. Same way that ice baths do.
Yeah.
But I think that this concept of pushing and being uncomfortable, like I'm not a David Goggins. I'm not just run until you're fucking broken. But I do believe in doing hard stuff. And there's a bunch of research about it. Like there's this part of your brain, the mid-singular cortex or one of those parts. And literally, when you do hard stuff or when you are engaged in struggle, it engorges, it swells, it gets bigger. And when you're comfortable and things are easy, it shrinks. And you can look at it in longevity and lifespan because as people get older, when people die, it's really, really small. And the
Mm.
people that are living longer, they have an engorged one cell. They're still filling their life with struggle. Literally, struggle is life, right? The pursuit of comfort is the pursuit of death.
Yeah. And that's great. Physically, those are great options. I think relationally and emotionally, one thing that people can really work on is working to just maintain eye contact for a little longer than you're comfortable with. I'll do this exercise with leaders when I work with YPO groups and other leadership groups, where I'll have two men or two women come up, they'll sit in front and they'll sit, this far apart from each other, and they have to maintain eye contact for 30 to 60 seconds. No laughing, no talking, just staring in each other's eyes. And you see the first 5 to 10 seconds, this tremendous amount of discomfort. Their
Yeah.
arms are shaking, their legs are shaking, they're looking all over the place. But after that time, they kind of settle in and they find their sync. They
Yeah.
they can connect, they can relate. And we really need to learn, especially through COVID, on how to reconnect and stay connected. We suck at connection. We really
Yeah.
do. COVID messed it up for us. And we need to get really good at maintaining eye contact, but also asking really good questions of other people and stop talking so that we can take in information from others. When we're talking, we have control. Okay. When you ask someone a question, you don't know where they're going to go with that. And you kind of lose control. You don't know if they're going to go up, I had a great day, or I had the worst day of my life. And you have to be spontaneous in that moment to just listen, stay present. But when you talk and you're controlling conversations and you're the life of the party, you're kind of in control. So building that tolerance is really getting out of control, asking good questions, listening well, maintaining eye contact, staying present. These are all things that are tremendously difficult for leaders because we're always looking for the next thing to keep us distracted. And yet, that research that we talked about earlier on the regrets of the dying, it's all about a desire and a wish to be more present and connected with those who are right in front of us. So that's one way to build tolerance in that area of life as well.
Building emotional tolerance, to be honest with you, I haven't ever thought about that, which obviously I should because it's you're training in the same way. But that's super interesting. Like besides eye contact and just like engaging, like for people that have social discomfort, conversation and stuff would be uncomfortable. But for like a guy like me, what's a practical way that I could push discomfort in emotional or a social area?
Yeah, I talked about this the other day around marriage in general. If your marriage is going to thrive, you need to be able to say a couple things. You need to be able to say, I love you, I forgive you, I'm sorry, and I need help. So practicing literally having those words come out of your mouth. I've worked with groups of men and I've asked them, when's the last time you said that you were sorry to your spouse? And they're like, uh, can't really remember. When's the last time you asked for help? Can't really remember. And the reason why they don't do it is because it's kind of that first, you got to break the ice and then it starts to get easier. So once you do something, it actually starts to become easier and easier as you practice it. So you really have to get better in your relationship, specifically in your marriage, whether you're a man or a woman, being able to say things like, I'm sorry, I acknowledge that I made a mistake here. I forgive you. I love you. There are men who have never heard the words I love you from their fathers. And there are women who've never heard the words I love you from their mothers. And they themselves struggle to use those same words to their kids. So being able to say I love you, even to friends, I have friends all the time that I will text and I say, I love you, buddy. And they'll say, I love you too. That word of bonding and
Yeah.
connection, it's not weakness, it's strength, but it's uncomfortable for us. And we need to
Yeah.
get better at expressing what we feel, acknowledging when we make mistakes, taking accountability, and saying I love you more frequently. So relationally, I call that relational fitness. Like level up your level of fitness relationally by
Yeah.
practicing these tools that build a tolerance rather than tapping out.
Yeah, I think the I love you thing is a really good one. For me, I had a dad that said I love you all the time, but I didn't like saying I love you to my friends was weird, right? I
Mhm.
had one buddy that it was just kind of programmed into him. He would always just be like, "All right, love you, dude," and I would always be like, "Whoa, dude," and
I
I
don't
and
know
I
if I
really had
love
to
you.
like think into it, and I'm like, "No, no, no, this is my best friend. I love this dude," like, and then taking that and going like, "All right, let me apply this honestly to my other relationships." I love a lot of people that I just never say that to. And that is uncomfortable when you first start doing it.